We're here.
We're here. Hi.
Good evening.
Hello, all. Welcome. It is Monday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we're not wearing our regular attire this
Well, because
evening.
I'm coming off an interview.
And I am coming off of a work day.
You always are coming off of a work
That's
day.
true. That's true. Yeah, some of us have to make a living. Just breaking the chops.
Yeah.
No. We all have our little ins and outs and things that we have to do, but time is of the essence because one of our wonderful guests this evening is coming in a little down, a little out. You know, I know what it's like to have a bad headache, and certainly with all of the work that she has been doing lately, it goes without saying that she is fighting an unbelievable fight, particularly when it comes to trying to facilitate some type of an anti-war movement in this country. And on the 1-year anniversary of what has been a touch-off point for the biggest modern day genocide, yes, the G word, we have seen in quite some time. We certainly need movement leaders that care enough to try to make a stand in very rough times. Angela McArdle, welcome back to Generational Change.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
I know it's always nice to talk to reasonable, like-minded people. It's always nice.
It is. But you did not come alone this evening. A gentleman who has been wanting to speak with you for a little while.
Oh, really?
And he is the director of the Ron Paul Institute. What better anti-war organization could there possibly be in the United States right now? Daniel McAdams, welcome to Generational Change.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be with you guys.
It's nice to meet you. You wanted to talk to me?
Of course, yeah. I mean, you almost kicked Deborah's butt.
Well, you know, it's a valiant effort, but it's at the end of the day, it's like it's Sisyphusian, and it's just not. It's not something that happens often.
I think this is the perfect place to start when you think about it. You know, we've been in this red-blue divide for so very long, and yet, when you think about just how tedious our circumstances are right now and dangerous. I mean, I don't think people fully grasp. I mean, we got a double shot down here. We've got another hurricane bearing down on us in another day or so.
They've already canceled school Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah. So I look at this as you two are libertarian. And yet, if I were to put you two on one side and somebody like Debbie Wasserman Schultz on the other side, and the only thing you had in front of your name was, let's say it was an R, in front of her name is a D, and people are automatically just going to go over to Debbie because she's got a D in front of her name. Yeah, I think part of that is dying. I think we're entering a new phase of the sort of the political awakening of millions of people. So I think that would be a great place to start. When you think about what the Rage Against the War Machine rally was all about, it seemed to be...
We'll talk about, given, because not everybody knows what that was.
And it seemed to be a collection of all different walks of life of the political spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, who coordinated that? Like, talk about what that was. I mean, I saw some clips. Okay, Angela, talk about like what was the sort of process for coming up with who to put together for that.
Well, this is the second one we've done, and it's a collaboration between the anti-war left and the anti-war right. And, when I say left, I think, not the Democratic Party necessarily. The dissident left, and the dissident right, and so that means some ex-conservatives, people who are conservative but are not GOP members, libertarians, a variety of us. But, essentially, when the war between Russia and Ukraine popped off, and the United States started beating the war drum and saying, hey, we got to fully fund this, as they fully fund the war in Ukraine. Nobody was really speaking out. There were a handful of people, and I thought, we need to have a large demonstration. And it felt like that's what reignited the anti-war movement again. And things have definitely since, taken off. There have been a lot of protests about, the Israeli-Palestine conflict, and I think that's amazing. And that was more forefront in our minds with this rally. That's the one that people are rightfully up in arms over, and we thought that it would be a good thing to do that, in Washington D.C., especially the day before we were having a big unity event on the same stage.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I do think that at this point, talk about Ukraine gets overshadowed much more so by what's going on in West Asia. I think we talk, it's just a different, it's like we look at them like they're completely different when in fact it's empire. It's just empire in two different locations. Yeah. And the money that, I mean, I know that we will argue about like where our money should be spent and how we should do that. But most people do not want it there.
Well, nobody is, well, a few people. Almost nobody is signing up saying glass parking lot, we want to kill women and children. That's correct. Most people, even people who are like, well, maybe war is good sometimes, they're usually like, don't kill babies. There's a couple of them. You know who they are. Won't say their names.
There's some. And, we definitely, it's what we get in terms of information is so tainted here. It's just so ridiculous. Like the Western mainstream media, how it covers things is just, have you ever seen when they put those sort of panels together, the Brady Bunch, and they're all saying the exact same word at the exact same time, like their little news head talking points. Yeah. And that's how the war in Ukraine was covered. And certainly not as critical as it was a couple weeks ago, where we're like this close to, Biden saying, sure, we could go ahead and send people so you can go long range into Russia. Sure, we'll go ahead and okay that so you can go. I mean, that's like very close to Russia going the nuclear option. And I don't think people understand that this is not like we're using it for political theater and Russia is not.
Right. Dan is the expert on that.
Yeah. Well, I would just comment if I can beforehand. I really like the name of your program, which is Generational Change. And it's a nice play on words because, I am a Gen X, early Gen X person, and we still have kind of that boomer hangover on the early part of our generation, and the boomers, if you look at how they view, U.S. view of the world, it's terrible. It's always tainted by the end of of World War II and the Cold War. And the later generations and yours they don't seem to be I would hate to use Kamala's word, but burdened by the history, burdened by what
I'm Gen X. I'm Gen X.
Well, you're very young looking Gen X, but
thank you. But I'm right in the middle. Like I'm literally the exact middle of Gen X.
But nevertheless, if you look at the polls, I mean, it's actually quite encouraging, and it's very easy to get depressed and think that young people think that this country is going to hell in a handbasket. But when you look at the polling on young people on for example, the Middle East, they do not support American blind support for the wars that are going on. Here, have some weapons, kill some more people. And so that's really something to feel encouraged about. And I don't want to start this out being encouraging, but I just would want to say, by the way, I spent 13 years on the Hill, and I know your former opponent very well. At least in terms of having to watch her on television every day, because we were forced to watch C-SPAN because that was our job to find out what was going on the floor. and she would come down incessantly and was a really, really obnoxious and terrible person. So hope you'll keep up and take her seat eventually.
I don't know. I think it's not meant to be in that way, but I actually think I'm probably infinitely more dangerous on the outside than I could be on the inside. But the thing is that as soon as our district gets redistricted another time, then it wouldn't be out of line for her to be taken out by a Republican. But as far as in the primary, it's just our district is such a mess.
But the thing is, it's not necessarily about winning. I mean, Dr. Paul lost 3 times total for the presidency, but certainly the 2 runs for the Republican nomination for the presidency, he lost, yes, but he won in the end because he influenced many more people. That who's going to remember, like John McCain? Who did he influence? Mitt Romney, who was like motivated, and really deep down motivated by that. So in the end, it really isn't about necessarily winning in the terms that the media would like. It's about influencing people and introducing a different narrative, which is what you did in your race. You introduced a new narrative. Hang on, I hadn't thought about that before, and that's very important.
Yeah, we've always said that the campaign is more than a means to an end, that it's its own part of the snowball. We've always said that. I mean, that's what this podcast was transitioned from the first campaign.
And that's also one of the more difficult aspects of running for office, because it does take a lot of time and effort and money and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of effort. Angela, I can't even imagine, it's been probably a whirlwind week in particular. It's very hard to climb this mountain. And when people are constantly telling you, oh, you didn't win, or why are you even bothering? Why is Chase Oliver running? Why is Jill Stein running? It's like, because things that are worth doing are hard to do.
Yes.
That's the point.
But notice those people then say Trump's the threat to democracy.
But you know what I did notice, as I'm sure you did in particular, Daniel? I can still remember Ron Paul being on the debate stage in 2008 and being booed for suggesting that we should be an anti-war party. And it's incredible how full circle it came when Trump did the same thing in 2016, and they were booing him, but it was obvious that he was a front runner. And the one thing about the right compared to the left is the right always cares about winning more than the left does. And so they kind of were like, well, I guess if this is where it's going, but if it's going to beat those damn Democrats, I guess we have to get along. Do you guys see some type of a seismic shift between the two parties? I always like to ask this because, this has definitely become a two-party system in which the blues are almost overwhelmingly represented in the urban and suburban districts, and the red team is overwhelmingly represented in the rural parts of the country. But do you think that there has been any type of a shift in terms of, just the overall party structure, particularly when it comes to these core issues, constitutional rights, anti-war sentiment? We see that, sort of on the bigger level, but in terms of, the infrastructure on the ground level, do you see that change actually happening?
What do you mean the infrastructure on the ground level?
Well, for very often, there used to be this really big, what you would call, anti-war left movement in the Democratic Party.
Oh yeah, it's gone there. There is no anti-war movement in there. It doesn't exist there.
So I would say it's been like a seismic shift. And what has really surprised me the most is to see how radically the Overton window has shifted on the national federal level. That I did not expect. That is really like a black swan event. The GOP is not fully committed to being anti-war at all, but they are talking about it, which didn't exist before. Oops, this is like some weird issue with me. Freezing
but the sound's fine.
I'll pop back. The fact that so many of them were willing to actually speak out against the war in Ukraine, I think that is really crazy. And so I'm hoping, I'd like to be optimistic and say that it's, that eventually maybe they can speak out against Israel too. So I disappeared. I don't know where I went.
No, we can still hear you. I think the difference with Ukraine and Israel is that too many of them have a religious ideological connection with Israel, whereas Ukraine, it's able to sort of just be more pragmatic, I think, for a lot of the ones that are like your Christian Zionists.
Absolutely.
That's what I think. I think that it's,
I think it's I think that's definitely a big part of it. But the more significant aspect of it is the fact that the Israel lobby is right there with big pharma and big oil when it comes to the most influential, multinational conglomerates on the Hill. You do not get in Israel's way, especially right now, because they're a wounded animal. So now, when they say that we are willing to commit 100 million to this election cycle alone, I think it's going to top like 125 million by the time it's all said and done. And just how out of control corporate special interest money controlling our government has just come to the forefront. But I think because it's so in your face now that a lot of the public is starting to reject it. Your thoughts on that? So
here's a couple of thoughts on that. One, what is one of my biggest political goals? I aim high. High. It's to become a more powerful influence than AIPAC. That is what I want to do. I want to become a more powerful influence than AIPAC. I want to compete with AIPAC and knock them out. Whether that's party aligned, which I don't really think it will be ever, whatever that block is, I want to be in charge of it.
Anti-AIPAC.
Yeah. And I do think it's actually possible. Neocons didn't used to control Washington, D.C. They were like this fringe weirdo think tank. And then William F. Buckley, and maybe he had a little bit of help from the CIA on this, but they went from fringe weirdos to being in charge. Well, not to be crass, but at a certain point, they are going to literally die out. And I think that we do have an opportunity there. And there are a whole bunch of progressives who are super pissed off. And it would behoove us all to get along and behave ourselves, and work together on this one issue. I think that we can. The other thing that I think is really important and something that needs to happen in this country is that evangelical Christians need to reject dispensationalism and the weird way that they quasi worship the government state of Israel. It's a whole thing with the Schofield Bible. I would say that it's bad theology. And if there are Christians listening, just go down the rabbit hole and Google and look up dispensationalism. You can love everyone on this earth. You can live a Christ-centered life, and you don't have to think that it's God's plan that he's going to wage war on the rest of the world via the state of Israel. I think when we can tackle that problem, you're going to see the opportunity for a lot of incredible growth and peace in this country.
I remember when Dr. Paul had a constituent delegation coming in from Christians United for Israel, which is a very powerful force, or at least at the time it was on the Hill. And they came in and they were very aggressive, and they told him exactly what they wanted him to do. And he very calmly, and they told him about, their views about the end times and how we have to work to hasten the end times. We have to work to hasten the apocalypse, because that's what God wants us to do. And it was one of the times that I really marveled at his skill. And I don't think it was a practice skill. It was just a natural skill. He just his Lutheran self leaned back and said, well, I kind of think that God is all powerful, and he really doesn't have to depend on us to help him for whatever plan he has in mind. And they didn't have any response for that, and it was really kind of funny. And when the group left, it was the older generation left, the kids that brought along with him snuck back into our office to have him autograph things and sign things. So I think it was a good sign.
It does take time, to build up these coalitions and build up the trust. We find that especially the second run, I think you would agree, Jen, is one of the big problems that we had is being able to build coalitions with other groups if people on what you would consider to be the far left, they don't really like to play well with others.
No.
And that's a huge problem.
Yep.
And even if you agree in principle on certain issues, libertarians and progressives in particular are never going to agree on some of the multiple foundational principles of how economics should actually work in this country. And because of that, they see it as, well, we can't get along with them. We agree on endless war. We agree on civil liberties. We probably agree more on healthcare than one is willing to admit. But they believe in, a free market economic system. We generally don't. We agree more with the socialistic style of economics. But you can't live in a world today where you're literally seeing everything crashing down and just assuming that you can continue to have these purity tests. The only purity test I have in politics is whether you're corrupt or not. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all that matters to me.
I mean, I almost think that is even old in a way. I mean, after the rally we had on Saturday, I had dinner with my good friend Max Blumenthal and his wife Anya Parampil, who've been good friends of mine for a long time, and they say that he's progressive, and I don't know what I am. I'm a religious person, but I think these things. I think one of the things that we can do, especially as libertarians, I'm not a libertarian, but with my mind sort of suffused with libertarianism, is to say, okay, the left, you want working class people to do better, and we do too. We have the same goal. Here's how we think it might work better. What are your thoughts? And let's talk about it that way, rather than this kind of I'm on team A and you're on team B. We want people to have healthcare that works. Certainly the right. We like unions. We like labor. We like individuals to succeed. There are ways that we can come together, sort of in a less than meta way, and I think that's the kind of conversations we need to have.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no economic theory. There's no economic theory in nuclear winter. I mean, like, it doesn't matter if we all get blown to smithereens.
No, and we are definitely close to that. Like, we're closer to that than people realize. And right now, I look at people like Netanyahu as like, that is the biggest threat to security in this world, is him and people like him that are, an American empire. We're the threat, right, to global security for everybody. But if I think about anybody who would be willing to push that button and take everybody out with him, it's that guy.
Yeah. And I do want to ask you both of the prospect of Trump getting in again. And Angela, I know you've talked about, the fact that Trump has pledged to appoint at least one cabinet member who identifies as libertarian, which you would see as definitely a win in terms of political influence.
Depends on which part of the cabinet,
That's
if it
true.
matters.
That's true. I don't know if you have one in particular that you think would be
some
a
are
good
better
fit.
than others. You don't want to get like some, you don't want like the loser position.
Well, I don't know what you would consider the loser position.
I'm just joking, but there is definitely like a hierarchy, obviously.
But the thing that I don't think people are really making a big enough deal about, and I think it definitely culminated with the full embrace of who in my opinion, is the biggest war criminal walking the earth right now, and that is Dick Cheney.
That was it.
So
yeah.
once you've embraced, fully embraced,
do
a rally with Liz Cheney and
all
say,
over.
I so welcome your father's support. And I'm thinking, but it's not just him. And Daniel, you know this as well as anybody. It's Bill Kristol.
Yep.
It's Jennifer Rubin. It's David Frum.
Tom Bolton. Yeah.
They have been fully embraced by the Democratic Party establishment. And I'm thinking there's got to be some type of a vacuum right now. In
Victoria
the GOP.
Nuland, Elliot Abrams.
Yeah.
I could go on.
Like in the GOP, a lot of those people have really just been welcomed into the Democratic Party. And if Trump wins, I don't see a circumstance where they're just going to be welcomed back to the GOP or everything's going to be okay. So I kind of feel like there's an opening here of some
No,
They're
they'll
not.
just be more crazy.
So I think there is an opening, but I'm being very realistic, maybe a little bit stoic about what that opening is. We're not going to have peace in the Middle East just because Donald Trump gets elected. What we have is an opportunity to start building long-term for peace and normalizing it and getting more people elected on both sides of the aisle who are like, you know what? America first means that we stop sending money to Israel so that they can blow up kids in Palestine. We're going to have to reach critical mass on that. But there are going to be opportunities where we can just like skyrocket up along the way. And so that's how I see this. At my very most optimistic point, I would think maybe Donald Trump will make some sort of deal that less people will get murdered.
Listen, I am the king of making deals. That's what I do. I get over there.
Yeah, exactly.
Really great, incredible deal. You're going to love it.
I mean, if only for optics' sake, it's like, this is embarrassing. We got to get this war over. It's hurting me. It's all about me.
Well, that's the thing ultimately about him. He doesn't have an ethos. He doesn't have like principles. I mean, he's just him in the moment, narcissist, money, but whatever. It's not.
I'll tell
he
you,
doesn't have
yeah.
a plan.
I'll tell you what he does want, though. He wants that legacy. He won't just be the only other president aside from Grover Cleveland to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. But if he has if somebody like, even if it's RFK and Tulsi in his ear, basically telling him, if you end the war in Ukraine and the war in Israel, they will be building statues for you all over the globe.
If only both of those people weren't also wrong.
Correct.
About
So-
Israel.
Correct.
So that's why
true.
I said
That's true, yeah.
I'm setting my expectations fairly low, you know, and I've had a sit down face-to-face conversation with him. I think, you know, the good thing about him is that he is open-minded. That doesn't mean that I'm going to persuade him on every single thing, you know, but my husband had a conversation with him about fentanyl and why it's just logistically like too difficult to track, you know, like maybe death penalty for drug dealers isn't a good idea because those pills are so tiny.
That kind of talk, that hyperbolic, you know, it's hard to take that seriously because it's just absurd. Unfortunately, people like your liberal people listen to that rhetoric and that scares them. So they like the pills and they're all worried about that. The difference between Trump and Kamala to me is I really view American empire as we're going to hell, right? Like we're going down. We're going down. Trump is a free fall. Kamala is a very slow escalator ride. Okay. But we're not going to be able to do anything until we hit the bottom. So to me, and Trump getting in, nobody lets off of him for 5 seconds. Kamala gets in, all of those liberals go back to brunch. Like I know we say that, but nobody will, like they will do all the same things that Trump did, like regarding how we treat immigrants, all of it. But they will pick at him for it, but they'll let her get away with it. So I mean, I don't like either of those people. It's not my people. But I think he, as I've always said, he facilitates the revolution and makes it faster. It's like a Band-Aid too. Let's just do it. Just do it. Yeah. You know?
I think, you know, a major thing too that's different about their campaigns, like look at their quote unquote coalitions. Yeah. He has embraced Kennedy and Tulsi, who are ex-Democrats, to be on the transition team, and like the Libertarians. You know, like I have a good working relationship with his campaign, and like I have to walk a fine line with that as the chair of the National Libertarian Party. You know, I come under a lot of heat, but the reality is, if I have an opportunity to make things better, to save the lives of just a few people, to get Ross Ulbricht out of prison, he is a political prisoner, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And I think that's the responsible adult thing to do. I think Tulsi and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. view it the same way. And they're excited for the change that they can make. You know, if I have the opportunity to bring in principled anti-war voices to start giving guidance on how to do it, that's huge. You know, the only way I get there, of course, is by being respectful and working with them to the extent that I can. So it's like, you know, what is my job? You know, it is eat shit and move things forward, you know, outward facing and inward.
Yeah, but you know what? I see this. I look at this from a logistics standpoint. I know you as the chair of the Libertarian Party. The only other chair, I don't even know off the top of my head who the chair of the GOP is right now. I know who the chair of the Democratic Party is, and it's not for good reasons. Right. You know, Jamie Harrison is a reflection of, you know, and again, he's not as bad as Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but my God, if it isn't just a reflection of how bad the party is and all the things that they do. And I know you guys are on limited time this evening, so I think a great place to wind down this conversation as it relates to this idea that this is the most important election of our lifetime. Yeah. Democracy is on the line here.
We lost democracy. It's already gone.
Forget that we lost it a long time ago to corporate special interests, but I look at where the Democratic Party stands today, and you look at what has evolved since Bernie's unbelievable run in 2015 and 2016, and how they made a conscious effort to completely corporatize the party beyond repair. And I'm looking at all the things that they've done when it comes to voter suppression, to completely eliminating the electoral process, to taking it all the way, as you were alluding to earlier, Daniel, the things that Wasserman Schultz does down here in terms of election rigging, in terms of how she threatens people and puts them literally up against the firing squad wall. And
I hate when you use literal when it's not literal.
But she
That's
did
so millennial.
It's a cool word, though.
Yes, but not yet.
And when you go to that length to control the system, I look at this as something's got to give with how corrupt the Democratic Party has become. You've seen people already talking about how just completely uncomfortable they felt being at the convention in Chicago, and how they felt that they were in a situation that they just wanted to get out of, and some of them have been getting out of it. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, do you see sort of like a mass exodus in many ways in terms of the structure of the Democratic Party? Because they're the ones screaming from the rooftops that democracy on the line, and yet it seems like they're the ones that are doing everything in their power to kill it.
Go ahead, Dan.
I would just say that, I this might be a little bit racy for our program. I'm sorry in advance.
No, it's okay.
I hate democracy. I think it's terrible because democracy destroys the minority, and the minority is important. And someone posted a meme that I saw yesterday. They said, well, democracy is the rule of the majority. And someone said, yeah, but so is gang rape. So it's democracy is not a religion. You have to have protection of minorities. And that's very, very important. But I would say and I know we're coming to a close, but my main point would be, I think if I had like a sort of a gun to my head, and someone said, well, you have to make a choice based on what you think is most important in this election, I honestly think that the Democratic Party, as it is currently constructed, is at war with the First Amendment. And that is the absolute most critical aspect to our freedom. And I don't think that Trump is a champion of the First Amendment, but I don't think, we saw Hillary yesterday or a couple of days ago saying, we're going to lose total control. We can't do this. We saw John Kerry saying this First Amendment is a real pain in the ass. We got to get rid of it. We saw Walt saying you don't have the right to say things that we think are disinformation. They are actively against. Now you have the Conservative Inc. and all these guys who are kind of like the woke left on the right, and that's a different thing. But I honestly think that there's going to be a real push toward canceling shows like you guys' show and others, in our show, and all of the things that Angela does with the LP. They're going to try to cancel it if Kamala wins. So at the end of the day, if I had to make a choice, and I'm a non-voter, I would say I hope Trump wins, because I don't think the most important amendment we have, which is the First Amendment, I don't think it will be as trampled with him as it would be with her.
That's as good of rationalization as any. You know what I mean? Like, you got to find a reason somewhere if somebody, if you had to pick between the two. But
well, we had a discussion our last podcast. I have never seen a more Manchurian candidate than her. You talk about completely controlled in every
Hillary Clinton.
aspect.
By Hillary Clinton. That's like the scariest thing ever.
Yeah, say what you want about Trump, but my God, if that guy don't say whatever the hell's on his mind.
They're redoing 2016, and they're going to get the same result. And it serves them right.
Your thoughts, Angela, before we go?
I think that the two-party system is not going to just like fade away overnight, but I think it's going to become increasingly irrelevant. So I think the infrastructure and the apparatus will stay there, but people will care less about your party, and they will care more about you, the person. I think that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did us a huge favor with that. I think that everybody is going to be lifted upward by his run. I certainly, I don't agree with all of his foreign policy choices, but I think that he is enabling us to have better foreign policy in the future. And so, I'm grateful for that. I'm excited to destroy the deep state. I want to take a stab at it. So I'm optimistic. As bad as things are, I'm optimistic for our future.
Good.
We have a small but mighty podcast. The truth is that we were growing pretty steadily over our first year, but then we had this crazy idea to do a Assange-a-thon on our podcast. I
did an Assange-a-thon.
Yeah, and it did pretty well, but you better believe our channel was we got marked.
That was definitely
we got marked. But
brutal.
You know what? Wouldn't do it any other way. You either speak truth to power or you're a part of the
And
crowd.
that's what I actually like about both RFK and Tulsi, even though I disagree with both of them on a lot of things. Those are both people that have spoken truth to power. And the idea of them in cabinet positions is infinitely better to me to have him over health and human services than whatever pharma tool Kamala would appoint.
I was just going to say, if you have a choice and you're going to have only two choices here, and you have one cabinet position to pick for a significant position, let's just say Secretary of State.
Tulsi would be
have
better.
Tulsi Gabbard or Liz Cheney?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. No contest.
Exactly.
No
yes.
contest.
And I don't like, and the truth is Tulsi's got Islamophobic issues.
Absolutely.
But she is definitely right on a lot more than Liz Cheney.
And and therein lies the rub. And you know what, Angela, and we can definitely conclude on this point. I would imagine you both would agree on this. You know, I think the whole surrogate concept of, political campaigning is considerably overrated, although I do believe, especially in 2016, that Nina Turner and Dr. Cornel West did provide a major boost for Bernie Sanders. I do believe that RFK and Tulsi going around and doing these rallies on Trump's behalf and drawing a lot of people to these events is actually a very underrated aspect of his ability to pull out victories in key swing states. Whereas I don't think Kamala has any of that. It seems to me that any of these events that she's doing, she's just relying on the old adage of what is a dying industry in the Democratic Party, which is just get the biggest celebrity to show up at the event and get them to say that we support you. So I do think if you're in it for the long run, that what we're starting to build here is going to have teeth in the not so distant future. And the fact that you two are fighting the fight that you are fighting, especially at a time where it is so difficult for people to even make any type of a substantial statement in lieu of what Israel is doing right now.
Yeah.
Commend you both.
I appreciate all the anti-war solidarity we get. And quite honestly, for whatever reason people feel it, I don't care what their reasons are. I don't care what their parties are. If we want to stop killing people, we're on the same team with that.
1000%.
Right? Like that's the whole team.
Love it. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely.
Guys, please, the links are in the description. Follow Angela and Daniel in their work. Thank you so much, guys. We'll be talking after the election.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And I can say at least Angela wasn't frozen in a bad way.
No.
She looked cute. Like it wasn't like she got frozen. Well, no, like if I'm frozen, it's like it's always
Listen,
like
I
the
have
worst
always-
of like chewing or whatever.
I have always said that if you're a good-looking woman and you have the ability to attract people to your message, just make it a good message. And Angela is fighting an unbelievable fight.
And I agree. Look, what she said is what I've been saying too. It isn't that Trump's better, but he has already been surrounding himself with varying different voices that have spoken truth to power. And that is important.
And JT, let's say that Trump is a lunatic. You mean to tell me that the people surrounding Kamala Harris are not lunatics?
You don't think Hillary Clinton is a psychopath?
A lunatic? We're screwed either way.
Hillary Clinton is one of the scariest people that I can even think of in politics.
But the one thing that we have pointed out time and time again, and I will continue to point this out, and this is the privilege of the liberal class voter, particularly the upper liberal class voter in this country. If Trump wins, all of a sudden, they're going to give a damn about what's going on in Gaza.
And the border.
All of a sudden, they'll care.
Because it'll be his doing. Whereas if Joe keeps building the wall and Joe keeps deporting people, that's not a problem. They'll defend it. They'll find an excuse for it. But if Trump's doing it, then they give a shit. So we've talked about this before. And again, we are not fans of Donald Trump. I've never liked him. I think he's disgusting. But if you're going to ask me, who do I think is more psychotic, him or Hillary Clinton? Her every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
1,000%.
Without any hesitation. And that is who is puppeteering Kamala. So that I'm not having. That I won't stand for. I actually believe that the idea of 8 years of Clintonism will be the end of this country.
Miss Chewy, keep in mind, we're not comparing apples to oranges.
No. And when you say lunatic, you're talking about per issue. I get it.
Yeah.
Do I agree with RFK on vaccines? No. I don't agree with him on foreign policy.
Tulsi and RFK are lunatics on Israel.
Yeah.
Lunatics.
Absolutely. But I don't think they're corporate whores. And they are both people that have spoken up when they felt the need to speak up. And yes, I would rather have a vaccine skeptic overseeing. Again, it's not like he would come in like a czar and take over. That's not how this works. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather have a vaccine skeptic than a pharma tool heading up that department without doubt. So yes, I agree. I don't agree with them on a lot of stuff.
And
exactly.
And if you're going to compare,
Ugh,
like, you are who you surround yourself with,
that's it.
no one comes even within a mile of Dick Cheney.
No, that's it. And not, but can we also address that she was bragging about how Goldman Sachs approved her economic
Goldman
plan?
Sachs approved her.
She's bragged about Goldman Sachs approving her economic plan.
And just to prove
Not a
that you
selling point.
can't win either way, you just hope that you can get marginal victories where you can. Goldman Sachs approves Kamala's economic plan, and then Jamie Dimon endorses Donald Trump. So you're fucked either way.
Yeah, that's irrelevant. But I do believe, and it is true, this has been proven. We have empirical evidence that when the neo-lib wins, or the at least outward lib wins, all the elitist people go back to brunch. They do. They don't care. They don't care. It doesn't affect them. Nobody's tweeting out mean tweets, so they don't really care. And I don't want them all having that luxury. I don't want privileged elitist people getting to have that luxury anymore.
Yeah.
Enough. They need to be uncomfortable. And Trump makes them very uncomfortable. And that pleases me. It does. Because nothing is ever going to change or get fixed until people are really, really uncomfortable. And the last people will be the neo-libs that will really have to feel that discomfort, either economically, physically, based on like climate issues. Maybe they have to have their house destroyed and their Tesla blow up their garage to realize we have a problem.
Yep.
I don't know, but people need to be uncomfortable. So if Trump facilitates that, then yeah, because we're going to hell either way.
And
capital is falling and the empire is falling. And honestly, I would within 10 years, we're going to all be talking about BRICS in a way where people be like, oh, where'd that come from?
Yeah, really. Yeah, really. And if you want to get an idea, and listen, we've got some people in the chat who are very concerned about Trump winning. Well, today is the 1-year anniversary of what supposedly was the beginning of the war in Gaza. So here is who your potential next commander in chief has to say on the 1-year anniversary from her interview with 60 Minutes.
Oh, good God.
We supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid. Mm-hmm. And yet Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be charting his own course. The Biden-Harris administration has pressed him to agree to a ceasefire. He's resisted. You urged him not to go into Lebanon. He went in anyway. He has promised to make Iran pay for the missile attack, and that has the potential of expanding the war. Does the U.S. have no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
The aid that we have given Israel allowed Israel to defend itself against 200 ballistic missiles that were just meant to attack the Israelis and the people of Israel. And when we think about the threat that Hamas, Hezbollah presents, Iran, I think that it is without any question our imperative to do what we can to allow Israel to defend itself against.
Here it is again, defend itself twice. Got to get that in there because that's their only talking point.
And what's interesting is when she has to combine Hamas and Iran, like they're all the same thing.
They are all the same thing to them. Well, the truth is that is the axis of resistance, and they are working together in conjunction with each other. They are. They're just not terrorist organizations. The terrorist organization is you're living in it. We're the terrorist organization. I vacillate between two things. This is what I would say to people that are in the Biden or Trump or Biden Kamala supporter camp. Okay, there are two options here, and I know what I think is the truth, right? You either believe that Netanyahu is running free, rogue, and they just can't get him under control. They just can't seem to do it. And they're just that incompetent that they just can't do it. You either believe that, or it's what I believe, which is it's all us. It's all us. He's doing exactly what we want him to do. We're giving him the green light behind the scenes. And there is no discussion about it one way or the other. He is not acting rogue. That doesn't happen. We're the people supplying the weapon. So that can't happen. That's how you know de facto that that's not the case. So either, and I would present this to her, either you're so fucking incompetent and weak that the strongest country in the world that's giving them the weapons can't rein them in, or they're doing your work for you. It's one or the other. And I don't think they would admit to being incompetent.
Got to tell you, this freeze frame of her right now, she looks very, very robotic.
Well, she is robotic, but that's better than the other freeze frame on Willie Bragg pulled up a still photo of her, and she really looked like it was like such a Valley Girl picture. Like,
Well, she's a Cali girl, so
Yeah.
keep going.
Those kinds of attacks. Now, the work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles, which include the need for humanitarian aid, the need for this war to end, the need for a deal to be done, which would release the hostages and create a ceasefire. And we're not going to stop in terms of putting that pressure on Israel and in the region, including Arab leaders.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill,
So are you completely feckless, or are you really on board with what he's doing? It's one of those two things.
And it's not like this has happened once or twice.
I love that people actually believe that they're working around the clock for that ceasefire.
Well, that's anybody who's stuck within the vote blue, no matter who bubble,
You
and just
people are
want to
crazy.
pretend that that's really going on.
So then you truly believe. So then that's what I would say to those people. So then, in other words, what you're saying is you believe that the United States leadership is so fucking weak and feckless that it can't even control the behavior of a client state that only has weapons because of us. And they're that feckless that I should vote for them? See, no. See, you're in between a rock and a hard place. Either they're feckless and they can't assert themselves, even though we're the largest empire to have ever existed on the planet, or they're completely in lockstep with what Netanyahu's doing. See, and I actually believe that.
It is the latter.
I do. I actually believe that. And she has no idea necessarily about any of that.
She just wants the job.
She's the suit and that Hillary got to put on. That's it. But she very well believes what she's saying. She might believe what she's saying. I don't know.
Her husband is like, he's like a total Zionist psychopath.
It doesn't. The point is that you cannot simultaneously tell me that they're going to do a good job, then have this excuse that they're not effective because of Netanyahu. No. Oh, hi from Brazil.
Got to say hi in Portuguese.
I only know how to say thank you.
All right, say that. And
Obrigado.
there you go.
That's all I know how to say is thank you.
Hey,
I
that's
was
almost
very
like
thankful when I was in Portugal.
Yeah.
So I was like everything. And plus,
You almost had a Kamala cackle right
and
there.
I will tell you, okay, but my laugh is real and you know it.
Mm.
But my thing, people who know this, and I'm traveling, it's all about the food.
That is
Okay.
true.
So all I need to do is point and then say thank you when they hand me the pastries. That's it. That's all I have to know how to say is thank you.
Fairly warned. Okay, let's finish it.
the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
Do we have a real close ally in Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think, with all due respect, the better question is, do we have an important alliance between the American people and the Israeli people? And the answer to that question is yes.
Yes, they're our aircraft carrier. They're a permanent aircraft carrier. That is what they are in Western Asia. They are a permanent aircraft carrier for us.
That was such a bad answer.
She doesn't ever answer. Again, she hit all the talking points. Every time that one of these drones is asked about anything having to do with Israel, always starts out with Israel has the right to defend itself, inevitably makes its way to a ceasefire, and it will always, always, always bring Iran into the conversation. That will always be included in one of their talking points. I want to point out before I forget that if you guys go over to the Gray Zone, Max Blumenthal has released it's a documentary. It's on their video. It's just there. It's free. Called Atrocity Inc. And it is a deep dive into the entire Hasbara and propaganda campaign since October 7th. And of course, it's Max, so it's great. Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. I know. Russia and China. I still put this out there. I am still waiting for someone to explain to me how Russia, China, or Iran is a threat to my safety. And I have yet to see somebody give me an answer. So I'm still waiting. And I've asked people like Colonel Wilkerson, Matthew Ho, Dennis Fritz. Like I've asked people that would seemingly have an idea, and yet I don't feel remotely threatened by those, and neither did the people that would know if there was a threat. So I don't understand.
Now I could say it now because it's after the fact, but Max Blumenthal was actually, I was trying to make him our third and final guest on the panel this evening, but that would have been too short.
No.
He's out of the country right now.
I know.
He said to message
he's
next
in
week.
Turkey. I know he's in Istanbul.
So he said message next week when he gets back to DC.
I love Max.
And we'll see about
I love
getting
Max.
him
I
on the
love
show.
Anya. What's funny is watching them both on with Judge Knapp at the same time from different rooms in their house.
What's funny is you knew them when they were just dating.
No, they were married.
Oh, they were.
They were married. They were newly married, but they were married.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought they were just.
Yeah, no,
dating
she
at the
just
time.
doesn't. She's not changing her name, but they were married.
Well, she's an independent woman.
She's adorable.
But she's great.
Anyway, so no,
Yeah.
Max has something out called Atrocity Inc. It's on the Gray Zone. Highly recommend. It does definitely a scathing assessment of my former childhood classmate Sheryl Sandberg, and a lot of the stuff that went down there. But it was great. Also, Al Jazeera has one. Al Jazeera has something out. Oh God, what is the name? There is a name, and it has to do with the propaganda machine and Western media and how it has been part of this sort of villain in this genocide.
Now, one of the things that we could have done today, obviously, is there has been a substantial amount, thankfully so, of Free Palestine marches all over the country, all over the world, frankly, which is great. But of all the clips that I thought it would make sense for us to play, I think I had mentioned previously that there were some sort of influential people that I did meet when I went to RFK's independent presidential launch in Philadelphia last fall.
I will try Chromium.
And this was shortly after October 7th. One of the people I ended up meeting was Emily Austin. Now, for those of you who know who Emily Austin is, she is one of the most influential people in terms of, in this case, I think she's Gen Z. She's actually really young. I'm not going to make any comments about the fact that I was shocked at how young she was. I thought she was older. The clip that she put out today on Instagram is a really juicy piece of propaganda. And this is what she does. This is what a lot of them do. And they get paid a lot of money. And it's also kind of interesting when you do a deep dive into these individuals and figure out how do they get 50 to 100,000 likes and comments on all of their posts that they drop, especially if it's Israel related? Because it's what is in the interest of the State Department. So they have their proxies, if you will, people that will put this information out there and just constantly be trying to reassure people that the reason that this massacre is going on is because there's these innocent hostages. I've already maintained that with very few exceptions, they're all going to be killed because they're all pawns. They're all pawns.
Well,
but there's also how many Palestinian hostages?
Going back to, if you watch very clearly what Max Blumenthal points out and has proven, and Haaretz, which is the newspaper in Israel, has even confirmed that the Hannibal Directive, which was employed by the IDF on October 7th, was employed. And if people don't know, the Hannibal Directive is something that Israel, the IDF, their general standing order is they kill their own people before they allow them to be taken as hostages so that the adversary has nothing to negotiate with. That is how they roll. They kill their own. There is also confirmation that the IDF and their helicopters have confirmed that when they were shooting down at the music festival at Kibbutz Verim.
Your audio's not coming in.
Is that better?
That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that there is evidence now that a lot of the people that were killed on the 7th were killed by the IDF. They kill their own people. They use their own people as human shields. And that has been shown. Unfortunately, but yet not surprisingly, the Western media never really goes back and retracts the bullshit once they put it out there about like decapitated babies and and rape as an act of war. And yet every single one of those things that they accuse Palestinians of are things that the IDF does regular.
And I will say this. because I really did everything in my power not to pay attention to any of the bullshit that was being spewed today. But State Senator Jason Pizzo, who is down here in South Florida, he is peddling the rape stories
Oh, good God.
today.
Well, that's just because look at his audience.
And look where he represents.
He is
in the heart of
into
Zionism territory
Yeah.
here in South
He's
Florida.
speaking to his people.
I'm just glad I didn't see any of Wasserman Schultz's posts today, because Lord knows how insufferable those are. But this is a really juicy piece of propaganda that Emily Austin put out today.
It's been 1 year since the horrific attacks of October 7th. Instead of telling you about the past year, I'd rather show you.
Why are we watching this shit?
Because people need to know what this.
I don't like promoting it. This is Hasbara.
That he led by two terrorists barefoot in his underwear, gently without him. No way.
The music.
Yeah, this is terrible. There's so many better things.
And she's crying.
Well, this is the same thing as like the thing Sheryl Sandberg did. They go and talk to the same handful of little tools over in Israel that are basically on the payroll for the IDF. Yeah, Max points all of it out very specifically, who the people are that are basically little IDF
So
tools.
these acts, you were done fighting.
Yeah, this is annoying.
Oh, here comes the Hamas, and
But I don't understand why we're like, who is this woman? Like, why? Who is she? Who is this girl?
I'm using this as an example.
Oh, okay. Of just bad Hasbara. It's just propaganda, but yeah.
And they use her well, and they pay her well.
There's a lot of these people, though. Like, this is just one of many. I've seen much better work.
She's got her big Star of David right there.
Of course.
Just to let you know.
But all of these people, just so you know, guys, all of these stories have been debunked. All of these stories have been debunked. But there's no like timestamp as to when she was like, this is not, I'm not sure. Are you just showing how bad their propaganda is?
That's the point.
Okay, yeah. That's why you guys should go watch Max's video called Atrocity Inc. because it really does hone in on how bad the propaganda machine has been, and how the Western media is basically, they're not just complicit. They're really part of it. They're really part and parcel of the whole genocide. It wouldn't be able to be complete without them. The fact that we're able to be watching a genocide live streamed and they're still able to do it, that's thanks to Western media, because they've done such a good job of painting the terrorists as what they do and dehumanizing them that this is just acceptable, apparently.
So she has almost 2.5 million followers on Instagram. And this post today, 14 hours ago, has already gotten, well, here's the thing that's interesting. But here's where you know it's propaganda. You know how?
Because it's all lies?
I don't know what the actual ratio is, but her post has over 92,000 likes and only less than 600 comments.
Well, and a lot of that is bots. They pay farms to do that, though. They pay people to like things. They pay. I am convinced that everybody who comments on Richie Torres's Instagram are paid.
I mean, that if there's one thing you notice about our podcast, which is heavily shadow banned, we will have podcasts where we'll drop a clip and we'll have 400 views and we'll have 80 likes. Like, that is a ratio that isn't real. And who's to say how many of the comments are from bot farms? You see, propaganda pays if you're willing to believe it. I don't believe it. I know you don't believe it.
No, but I wouldn't even watch that crap. I know that they're full of shit. I was used as a human shield and a tool of ethnic cleansing by the state of Israel. So they could say whatever they want to say. I've lived their bullshit cult.
We don't have to live in just sort of like this, memory hole of it's October 7th and everyone's talking about it. But what is of interest to me is this idea that they're really convinced that somehow this is all going to end one day and everything is just going to be fine.
Oh, well, it will. And as Jason says about like bleeding, all bleeding stops. And it does one way or another. And this will end. This will end. I like the idea of Greater Syria. I think we should go back and investigate the idea of Greater Syria. I learned a few things. I learned some stuff. Apparently, guys, after World War I, this is very interesting in the crumble of the Ottoman Empire in the region, the French and the British actually conducted somewhat of an election, a poll, if you will, throughout the region that is part of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine, right? And they polled proportionate numbers of Jews, Christians, and Muslims in that whole region, because that whole region are really similar peoples. Those are sort of like similar people. So like the Syrian Christians and the Syrian and the Lebanese Christians, it's similar. And they all voted, interestingly, overwhelmingly in 1918 or 1919, that region, Jews, Christians, and Muslims in that region voted overwhelmingly to incorporate and be Greater Syria. And it actually, the map of Greater Syria, if you look it up, makes a lot of sense, because that's the region of those peoples, Jews, Christians, and Muslims that lived in that area. So I kind of want, just like I like the idea of federal job guarantee, I'm going to put out the idea of Greater Syria. But the point is that was what they voted for. Overwhelmingly, they went to villages all throughout that region. And they asked the people, and they all wanted to be together in a Greater Syria. I'm just saying, that was what the people wanted there, but nobody cared what they wanted.
The Ashkenazi Zionists simply cannot accept that they are likely not going to get their way.
Yes, Chromium, I got the receipt. Well, I'm trying to figure it out. Do you know anything about that? All right, I'll figure it out.
Whatever you think you saw on October 7th, whatever you think you've seen since then, if you're still gullible enough to believe that what you're seeing is reality and not a shade of it,
they manipulated everything for pictures
purpose?
And for videos. They manipulated so many stuff. They used footage from other things. They actually showed again, please go watch Max's video. They actually showed photos.
See the movie Wag the Dog.
Well, they showed photos of dead and murdered Palestinians and claimed that those were people from the music festival. So you might have seen footage that's horrifying. Sure. I don't doubt that. And I even would love to give grace to Cheryl and think that maybe she was shown something that really was that.
You cannot be at that level of society and not know the score. Not possible.
But my point is, what you saw, as horrible as it might have been, is not what they're telling you it was. Okay? That's just not how this went down. It just isn't.
And on top of everything else I've been maintaining for a while, I think just like 9/11 was a setup, I believe 10/7 was a setup.
And here's the other thing, and I'm going to say this: Israel does not have the right to defend itself. Never did. Not from October 7th.
It's a colonial project. I mean, my God,
it's a concentration camp. Actually, it's so fascinating to me that Israel's so concerned with its rights to do things, but yet they don't not follow international law. You don't get the protection of a law that you don't follow. That's not how this works.
Ain't that
you want the right to defend yourself, then you need to be in accordance with international law. If they were in accordance with the 67 boundaries that they're supposed to be, pre-67 boundaries that they're supposed to be in accordance with, and then they got invaded by a neighboring sovereign entity, then they would have the right to defend themselves.
Metal. We've said this before. We'll say it again.
Of course
Every person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter.
There were lots of victims. I'm saying
tons.
That all that horrible, over hyperbolic,
and we're not here telling you that they deserved it. God damn it.
No one thinks that. No, there were victims all abound. But my point is, the majority of killing was not done
IDF.
by Hamas.
IDF.
And it's just not even logical. Again, I strongly suggest, well, allowed to happen. Yeah, that's what I think. I think definitely allowed to happen and definitely capitalized on.
But just remember, and I mean this in the most polite way possible, you're all rubes. We're all rubes to one degree or another. We know so little about what really goes on. If we know 5%, especially when it comes to foreign policy, in terms of what's really going on behind closed doors, that's a lot. Even the people like Emily Austin that are heavily paid propagandists know very little about what's going on.
But here's what I know. I know that you can tell that Israel's lying when its lips are moving.
That's for sure.
That's how you know they're lying.
Because they have to spend all that money.
The Hannibal Directive, and this has been, by the way, acknowledged in Haaretz, in their own newspaper. This is not like some out there theory. They absolutely killed their own people on October 7th. The damage and the fires and all of the destruction that can be seen after the fact from October 7th are things that were created by IDF equipment that Hamas doesn't even have. Again, this is bullshit. And yes, horrible things happen on the 7th. That is very unfortunate. But do I condemn it? No, I don't. I don't condemn it. I think if you want to keep people in a concentration camp, you don't have the right to defend yourself when they break out of
What if you were in a concentration
Imagine
camp?
being born in captivity.
How would you do that? How would you react?
I am so sick of hearing about Israel's right. Israel does not, one, have a right to exist. No country does. I don't believe countries have rights. They most certainly do not have a right to self-defense against the concentration camp. They just don't. And everybody around the world, except for us and our bitch in the UK, everybody knows that. So we are the people that just don't seem to grasp that. And we seem to believe what our betters are telling us.
The consistency is that it's kind of like what people have tried to point out about Iran and that they're not a peaceful nation. What do you think Saudi Arabia is? Saudi Arabia is committing a genocide in Yemen.
They have been since 2014.
But they're our ally, right?
Interestingly, the only two countries that are currently in compliance with the Genocide Convention are Yemen and Lebanon, because the Houthis and Hezbollah are actually fighting to stop a genocide, which is what they signed to do as part of being signatories to the Genocide Convention.
Yeah.
So those are the only people in compliance right now with that agreement. And yet those are the terrorists. So people, you really have to think about this. What is most likely? What is most likely? That the entire world is wrong, or that American empire wants to maintain power? Which of those things is more likely? Again, this is very Occam's razor to me. And I do not condemn Hamas. And I do not condemn what they did on October 7th. And I don't condemn Hezbollah. And I honestly, I am in awe of how much grace Iran has shown. I'm in awe. We have been assassinating their leaders. We assassinated a leader of Hezbollah, Hamas or Hezbollah? Hamas. No, Hezbollah. Mm-hmm. In Tehran. So that would be like if Iran decided to assassinate Justin Trudeau while he was here for the inauguration. Yeah, we would just let that slide, right? We would just let that slide.
I know people would probably be a little gleeful about it, but it's the equivalent of, let's say, Lindsey Graham being assassinated.
It's a lot of it. We've killed, we continue. You want to know why Hamas? First of all, Hamas has been agreeing to all of the ceasefire agreements. It's Israel that keeps moving the goalposts. No surprise there. But part of the reason why there might be trouble with negotiations is Israel keeps assassinating their leaders, which just is not a sign of good faith in negotiating. It's just not. So, there are no two sides here. There's no two sides. This isn't a war. This is so ridiculous that we're still having this discussion.
Like I said, you're going to either accept that we're not the good guys, because we're not, and then you move from there. And then you figure out where you want to land. Do I believe that there are terrorists out there with evil intentions? within, let's say, Hamas and Hezbollah? Sure.
Can you blame them?
Yeah.
See, I don't condemn that anywhere near as much as I condemn stuff like what the Clintons have done and what Dick Cheney has done,
Sure.
and people that have had infinite resources and power and have wielded it for evil and to manipulate like the world. Hamas and Hezbollah, they're fighting just to have some independence and self-determination. The only reason Hezbollah even exists is because Israel invaded Lebanon in the first place.
You know, it's like a good
This
example of
is
that.
so ridiculous.
And a great example of that would be waving the flag. I believe in the red, white, and blue very proudly, but I'm not blind and I'm not naive, and I don't just wave it because that means that America is infallible. But there's a lot of people who wave it because they do believe that America is infallible. And that has to change. We're in a very dangerous place right now.
But I tell you, if I were born in captivity, I would be spending my whole life figuring out not just how to get out, but how to get revenge. I would.
Yeah.
I would. And I will not fault people for
Why
that.
do you think that they had to shut down TikTok? You know, they've talked about banning TikTok, but they've never had to really shut down a movement on TikTok. They had to shut down the footage that was discovered of Osama bin Laden saying that it's Israel is the reason why we did 9/11. You can't have that message.
Well, and also all the stuff that's just going out to Gen Z, where they're really getting educated on what's going on over in Palestine. By the way, what's going on in the West Bank is brutal, brutal. You know, we have 2 days of schools canceled here because a hurricane is coming. Well, in places like Ramallah of the occupied West Bank, which is a Palestinian town, there are mothers there that, depending on what the checkpoints look like on a certain day, don't let their teenage sons go to school because they're worried they're going to get shot or kidnapped by the IDF.
And now
That's just their life.
And now apparently there is a storm that is forming in the Atlantic that might actually hit Europe, which apparently has never happened before. So if you think that the climate crisis is something to fuck with at this point, God help you all, because there are people who actually think, and this is the thing, and maybe it won't be the same if Trump is in there, because all of a sudden people are going to care about it. Drill, baby, drill. We're totally going to drill.
Biden's done worse.
They're drilling right now.
Biden
right
issued more drilling permits than Trump did.
Everywhere. And they ain't stopping. Why would they stop? And anyone who still thinks that this is a red versus blue bullshit game, it's over. It's dead.
Yeah, we
Get
see it.
out of it as fast as you can and try to do the things that we're doing, which is talking with people that just a few years ago no one would ever think of doing.
Well, I would have.
Having, you know, Ron Paul Institute director.
First of all, I
and the
always
chair of the
liked Ron
Libertarian
Paul.
Party.
I always liked Dr. Paul. And honestly,
Yeah.
some of the people that I've had in my life, like that I really like, have always really liked Ron Paul. Like he has principles. I don't have
agree.
any.
Well, we're going to do one story before we go.
I want to know,
This is-
because I wasn't pleased with the last thing. I don't want to watch stupid shit.
I
What
know
are we
you always
watching?
think everything that I do is stupid,
No,
and yet you never
when you
bring that
get
up
into
here.
TMZ stuff where it's promoting people who I don't want them to even have an ounce of my time or energy, that they have no, I want to talk about important stuff, not stupid bimbos.
So when we talk about the systemic issues that actually exist in our culture today, there is a informative channel on YouTube called Soft White Underbelly.
I
I'm sure a lot of
love
you-
the soft white underbelly. You watch that? I
So
love
a gentleman by the name of, let's see, I don't know why it's not appearing. 'Cause
that.
don't
I
recall
watch
his
them
name.
often. Which one was it?
So his name is Ron Piana. This is a guy who was a pharma executive for a long time.
Pharma.
Mhm.
Okay.
This is a 5-minute clip from his interview where he details exactly how Big Pharma controls this health system and why we are perpetually fucked until we get to single payer. Now, I know we didn't get into it this evening with our two libertarians, but
About what, single payer?
about single
Well,
payer.
that's the thing. You know what?
That
There
is
is
the
no.
only, it is the only solution.
It is, but there's no need to talk when we're talking about
Yeah.
forming an anti-war coalition. We don't need to be talking about single payer with them.
I'm assuming, Henry, that that's true, and if it is, that's
It
pretty,
might
that's
be,
pretty cool.
but Soft White Underbelly is actually a really good like documentary channel on YouTube, and he talks to some really interesting people.
So here's what Mr. Piana had to say about working behind the scenes in the
Well,
pharma
we got
industry.
this from like Wendell Potter.
Attending a meeting, the ASCO meeting, American Society of Clinical Oncology. It's the largest cancer organization in the world, about 40,000 members, very powerful, very politically connected. And at this time, I'm attending the meeting, and they have what they're called poster sessions. The poster session, now this is the size of a football field, this arena it's in, the poster session. And it's lined with posters that are 4 foot by 6 foot up on posts. So they're just straight line. The posters are essentially abstracts. They consolidate what was presented at the meeting, what the particular person presented. And I was walking by this one, and it was presented by Amgen, the pharmaceutical giant, and it was for this drug called Aranesp. And I had what I call the Toto moment, like in The Wizard of Oz, when Toto pulled the curtain and he saw the fake wizard. As I was walking by, the famous oncologist named John Glaspie, tall, imposing man, was talking to his associate. And he said verbatim, "What we need is a drug that fucking works." And that got me. And our eyes glanced a little bit and just we went off. I kept on my way. And so Aranesp is a drug, it's called an ESA, an erythropoietin-stimulating agent. Erythropoietin is a hormone produced in the kidneys that stimulates red blood cell growth in the bone marrow. It became famous. That's what Lance Armstrong did. An EPO drug, that's what he got busted for in the Tour de France. So it's used to treat anemia. And Amgen got it approved for chemotherapy-induced anemia. Okay, it was a very difficult approval because it's a growth factor. And anytime you enter a growth factor into the cancer setting, because cancer is unregulated cellular growth, there are many problems. One of the expert panel it was leaked that he said, I hope we're not approving miracle grow for cancer. Okay, but they did approve it. But Amgen wasn't satisfied with that market. They wanted a blockbuster, another blockbuster. Now, in cancer lingo, a blockbuster is a drug that generates at least $1 billion per year. So they wanted the other market in cancer, the bigger market, fatigue. Cancer fatigue is the most dreaded symptom cancer patients have, even more so than pain, because pain can be treated with opioids. Cancer fatigue, there's no treatment for it. And it's not like being totally exhausted, like, oh, I'm exhausted. It's cancer fatigue takes you into an otherworldly sense. The world outside you is moving at one speed and you're locked in place. It's soul searing. So any drug that helps this would be a blockbuster. The problem was that Aranesp didn't work. Okay. Instead, but the FDA still approved it, and Amgen began direct consumer marketing of this drug that had very dangerous side effects for cancer fatigue. So later on that night, I went down to the hotel bar, and I'd seen the Amgen sales reps, and these are very slippery people. They're mechanisms, okay? I mean, they're just simply mechanisms working for the company. I was there and talking and listening to them, and I'd done some amateur boxing when I was a kid, young guy, and they were talking about boxing. So I made a correction. I corrected it. It wasn't Marvin Hagler, one of these things, just to sidle up and have a conversation. So we started talking with this guy named Tom, and I dropped in as an aside, said, wow, you guys hit another home run with Aranesp, blockbuster. He said, yeah. He said, the docs love it. They can't get enough of this shit. I said, why? And he said, well, it's $2,600 an injection, in-office injection. Bang, $2,600. Bang, $2,600. He said, they're making a fortune. We just can't get enough of this stuff to them. So I waited a little bit, and then sort of jokingly, I said, yeah, but it doesn't work. And I'll never forget, he paused for effect. And he said, if you're putting your kids through Stanford and looking at a waterfront property in Malibu, it works. And my spine just cringed. That was my tipping point when I realized that the incestuous relationship between pharma and the oncology community, the healers, had been so corrupted by their money that everything had fallen off the cliff.
Let me be very clear. Cancer is extremely profitable. And the longer you can string people along that are sick, their goal, just so you know, pharma goal is to keep people alive, but chronically ill.
Correct.
That's the goal. The goal is to keep people on dialysis. The goal is to keep people, the medications that they have are for chronic. They want you to be chronically into that. So they're not trying to help. They're just trying to profit off of the sickness. And I do know, did I tell you I tempted Eli Lilly for a short period of time?
No.
I was a temp at Eli Lilly when we were living in Indianapolis, when Jason was in med school. And I temped for like a 6-week period of time for this department in the marketing department for a new pancreatic cancer drug called Gemzar at the time. So this was back in like 94-ish. And, I remember reading a lot of the information that they were like backing it with, and the clinical stuff and the trials and all this stuff. And the conclusion that people basically came to was it doesn't really work, but it might buy you a few months. And they were out marketing that. And by the way, the months that it would buy you were miserable. That's the other thing. It wasn't like it bought you some good months.
My late grandmother, who you met, had type 1 diabetes and was an unhealthy person for most of her life. And on the one hand, I do blame the individual because it is their choice to live a healthy life versus not live a healthy life. On the other hand, Big Pharma they're vultures of the worst kind. They prey on the sick, they prey on the weak, and they prey on the naive.
And can we throw in the NGOs? Let me tell you something. The Race for the Cure, all of those curing organizations, all of that stuff, those are arms of Big Pharma. You're donating to the same thing twice. So essentially, our collective resources pays those pharma companies for all their R&D. We subsidize it. We pay all the money for them to come up with that, right? Then they rape us on the back end by exorbitant prices and all of that stuff. These people, they're not about curing or helping.
No, it's about
It's
prolonging.
about profit.
And I was going to mention dope sick, but Bella's correct. Purdue Pharma patented a non-addictive opioid painkiller so that no one could ever produce it. And again, the whole point is to keep you on there and paying, but also upping the dosage so that you are addicted forever, that you can never get off it.
But that brings up an important point that we do not talk about enough, that I think is a component that some people who really know their shit understand. We need to deal with the patent laws in this country.
Good luck with that one.
Well, that's a huge part of the pharma problem. I do believe is the way that they control the patents in this country. And that is something that we can have control over.
Now, the big difference here between what's going on with the Israel lobby versus Big Pharma and private insurance, which are the biggest lobbyists on all of Capitol Hill, and the reason they have to lobby and the mirror distinctions between the two that they share is that they have to spend all of this money because what they're offering isn't necessary. It's just something they want because they figured out a way to commodify it and make billions upon billions, if not trillions of dollars. You think anybody's just going to give that up?
No, but people piggyback on it. So that's then what happens. So then you get organizations like Susan G. Komen and all of those NGOs that basically then just exist to support their payroll. And
Hell,
they just sit there and profit.
Even Planned Parenthood is
all
guilty
of those
it.
NGOs get to this size where they're but see, here's the difference. Planned Parenthood actually is clinics and services, actually does provide services.
Oh,
whereas the Race for the Cure is literally just an entire slush fund of fundraising money that ends up just going to subsidy. Like, it's such a mess. And all I know is those organizations are not solving anything.
That's a good one, Bella. I like it.
That is a good border crisis.
Yeah. Think about it. They do not want this type of system disturbed. And if one domino falls, they all fall because everyone is seeing through it now. Everyone is recognizing that the reason that we do not get off of fossil fuels is because it is extremely profitable. That is the number one reason. And yet, as we have been pointing out, for those who still don't believe that climate change is real and that it's caused by human activity, you need look no further than the fact that insurance companies believe it's real. And what was anticipated as a hurricane that was going to basically border between a hurricane, a Cat 2, maybe a Cat 3, is already a Cat 5 in less than 24 hours from being a tropical storm. You know how that happens? When the water is too fucking hot. And this is in August. This is October that this is happening.
It's bad.
And this should scare the shit out of everybody.
Scares me.
This is not just, and this is the
welcome to our Russian roulette that we play every year in South Florida.
And it's never been like this in Florida. You would have to anticipate a major hurricane coming through Florida once every 3 to 5 years. Now you're getting multiple every year.
Not only that, look how far inland. It's
the other thing.
The level of destruction inland is just
there is
out
a
of
chance
control.
that if the storm winds right now in the middle of the Gulf sit at 175 miles an hour. If this runs through Tampa at the speed that it's moving at right now, and it maintains its strength,
it's over.
It's Homestead all over again. Because it's east to west, just like Hurricane Andrew.
Well, Andrew was east to west, not west to east.
Not like most hurricanes, which go north to south. This is east to west. This is going to go right over the state, and it's going to crush Tampa. Going to crush it. But please, continue to deny this to the point at which you can't afford to live. And there are 3 million people that live in Tampa.
I'd be leaving.
You know how many people are going to get displaced?
I'm concerned. I need to call my aunt.
Listen, I've told my father, get the fuck out of there, because he's over in Naples now. Even though Naples is probably out of the direct shot of the storm by at least 100 miles,
we don't really know.
Want to take a chance?
I'm not psyched on where we are even.
I'm getting on a plane early tomorrow morning, and I'm going to the Panhandle. Now, thankfully, that's on one part because of business, and another part, it's completely out of the way of the storm. But we're getting to the point where we're really going to have a traveling crisis in this country because people are going to be running away from storms.
Well, evacuating is a really big problem here.
And we're on a peninsula.
Which is why I wouldn't have an electric car down here.
Think about if you're in Tennessee or North Carolina. We'll use Tennessee as an example. It's a landlocked state, and it's surrounded by 8 other states. You can go. There are many different directions you can go. When you're all the way down here in Florida on the limp-dick part of the state,
you're screwed.
You're screwed.
I tried to get out that one time, and I ended up getting stuck on the highway in gridlock around like Fort Pierce, and I turned around and came home. Meanwhile, it was like 6 hours it took me to go nowhere.
Sissy, I'm glad that you got out.
Good.
And it's a smart move.
No, a Cat 5. Truth is, Cat 3, I'm wanting out.
But here's the thing. They said that it was maybe going to get to a 3. It was likely going to be a 2. It's already a 5.
Wait till it hits what they have to now make up as a 6. Because that's coming. There will have to be higher.
And anybody who thinks I don't know what this is all about, I do know what this is all about because I lived through Hurricane Sandy.
That wasn't a hurricane. It was a superstorm.
A superstorm. Now, let me tell you, the one thing you will never forget, not having any power and literally living like you're in the 1700s, where I had a candle and a book. That's what I did because that's all you can do.
No, it's brutal. The post-apocalyptic feeling after hurricane is horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, you want to see what my backyard looked like after that storm? But let me tell you, you don't forget the aftermath of the storm, and you don't forget what it's like when the eye is near you and you can hear it. When you can hear that wind, that suction, that...
It's very scary.
It's scary.
It's very scary. Hurricanes are scary, and they last for a really long time. It's not like an earthquake where it's over like in less than a minute. You know, Hurricane Andrew was scary.
And this is where we constantly have to tell people that the proof is in the pudding. That this planet is too hot because the water is too hot. And that is where storms gain their strength. Now, you can pretend like this is fake news or that it's unproven facts, whatever. But the consistency doesn't lie. And if one of these storms now makes it to Europe, oh boy. Because you want to talk about a part of the world that is not prepared for this
Oh
shit.
no. Like if a hurricane level storm hit like the
France,
or hit like the Canary Islands off of Spain, like it would be a whole different thing.
These buildings in Spain and France, in many cases, are thousands of years old. They're done.
Yeah.
We have a mini moth flying around. At least it's not a queen wasp. It wasn't even a queen bee. It was a queen wasp
or a giant flying roach.
Yeah.
This is just
Well, that's the thing about Florida. You just have to be prepared for all possibilities.
And I'll tell you
in terms
what,
of nature.
people seriously after a hurricane, people think they want to go out and walk through the streets in the water. There are gators in it, my friend. There are gators swimming up the streets. And I will tell you, like, this is something that we say in Florida. How do you know there's a gator in the water? You walk over, you touch it. If it's wet, there's alligators in it. That's how you know. And let me tell you, there were gators swimming around in like Fort Myers or Naples or wherever that last flooding took place.
Even if you're not fucking with us right now, Metal, and even if you're being genuine, and I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that you're being genuine, the United States is still the lone cowboy out there. If we decide that it's time, it's time.
Well, China and India are definitely, it's a huge issue because even if we do everything right, those are definitely the larger populations. But the United States accounts for a way disproportionately high share of consumption and pollution.
We do.
That's mostly us. It's us. And a large part of it is the military industrial complex, followed pretty closely by big ag. So the way to really handle it is to stop all the wars. That would be the first big step.
And especially for the liberals out there with their Ukraine and Israel flags in their bio, let me assure you, you are the biggest aiding and abettors of climate change.
You know how many of them probably drive Teslas, though? They've got their little Ukrainian flag hanging out of their Tesla.
Mm-hmm. But as I have pointed out, and as you've pointed out, we need degrowth.
I have another theory as well about how we need to deal with storms, but people aren't going to necessarily like it because, again, it's not necessarily convenient. But the reality is, any city, any place like where we live that was dredged of water in order to build upon it.
Florida's a swamp.
Any place where we had to dredge the water, build canals to build on it is not working with the earth. It's conquering the earth. And you will eventually lose that fight. So my thought is for the civilizations like indigenous places, and there are still pockets of indigenous peoples, whether it's in South America or Australia, those are the populations that actually can coexist with the wraths of nature because they live with the earth. They don't conquer the earth. So for example, my dream home is to live like in an earthen cob house with a living roof that's basically part of the landscape, part of the infrastructure built into the earth. We conquer, drain, build with poisonous concrete and chemicals, put glass and metal, everything we make is poison. And we somehow think that we're going to outbuild the earth.
Our economy is going to collapse at some point.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen.
We need to consume less and we need to have smaller, more sustainable communities.
Correct.
The whole paradigm has to shift. And driving electric cars is just finding another sort of profit motive in the green economy, but it isn't solving the problem.
And this is also why I am an advocate for nuclear power, because even though nuclear requires a lot of work and there is a carbon component to getting it off the ground, if we're ever, and I mean ever, getting off of coal and natural gas, it is the only major energy source that can sustain major cityscapes. We have to continue what our trajectory is in terms of wind power, solar power, but we also have to recognize that the degrowth component comes with having community gardens. How about the fact that your fucking food is poisoned? Big agriculture is all connected in this.
Yeah, it's a problem.
You're talking about, and I didn't know this until recently, but I'm just going to say that a close person in my family her first husband died from Roundup poisoning.
That's actually not uncommon.
He got cancer from using it.
Was he like a farmer person, or he worked like a yard person, like a landscaper? Yeah.
No,
Oh, there's been lawsuits about that. Are you kidding me? Yeah, for sure.
You know how much lobbying was done on Capitol Hill as part of DuPont to prove that Roundup was safe?
They knew it wasn't. It doesn't matter. But that's the kind of stuff. So, you know, I'm not so worried. I'm not worried about the economy. I'm really not. Because the whole thing is going to have to fall apart in order for us to get to some semblance of actual survival of civilization. I don't see how we build things in places that cannot withstand Earth are going to survive.
And this is, again, part of the reason why when you say lots of land can't be used for agriculture already, because all the billionaires are buying it up, led by Bill Gates. That's why he's the most dangerous billionaire, because he's probably the most intelligent.
There's plenty of public lands. There's plenty of things that we could be doing, but it's not profitable.
Correct.
So, and you know, I have ideas of food forests, but there are definitely ways to be working better with the earth, even given the fact that we're seeing more severe storms. We need to change our approach, but we're not. We're still building and high rise after high rise. And it's just endless amounts of concrete jungle. And I am telling you, that is not conducive to coexisting on this planet.
And this is also what ends up happening when there's too much apathy in political discourse, because so much of it is a dog and pony show. It doesn't actually amount to anything of real value. So as it relates to what we're dealing with right now, yeah, we could scream into the ethos that Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, listen, this is why, you know, ether. And this is why Daniel McAdams comes on here. And here's a person who really, you know, supported you and wanted to see you beat Wasserman Schultz. And it's like, I would tell him, that's great. And there's a big roach over there.
I'm disgusted. Did you have to point it out?
Sorry. You can't see him now. You rolled under the.
I'm so disgusted.
Florida.
So gross.
The problem is that we're an audience of 41 right now.
Hit the like button.
We get a few thousand views a day. That's great. But we need 300,000 views a day. That's what
no. I feel like we move so slowly.
That live down here. I don't know if it's that they don't care.
They don't care.
But there are a lot of people who have just accepted their fate.
They don't care.
That is also something that you have to keep in mind.
We live also in a place full of privilege.
That is true too.
The people down here that participate in politics are generally privileged people. They're just also how it is.
And with all due respect, they're also very self-centered people.
Well,
there's also that part as well.
That comes with the privilege.
And for them, it isn't necessarily that they love Wasserman Schultz. In fact, most people really don't like her. They know she's a nasty fuck.
They're just scared of her.
Part of it is that they're scared, but part of it is that liberals in particular love the status quo. They want everything to be civil and accepting, and don't rock the boat. Just don't rock the boat. Yeah, we know Debbie's not cool, but Debbie's are cool.
Or things like, oh, we know she's corrupt, but they all do it.
But they all do it. I was with Jen, and listen, this campaign really pissed me off because Jen had some moments here where I really wish we had more money, more infrastructure, we had more time. But she went and spoke at an event that was televised for the disabled. And it was televised.
It was at the Lighthouse. It was at the foundation. It's blind services.
This was a clip that I filmed myself and put up on social media, and it actually made the rounds. It actually did pretty well. And there was a person that I spoke to in that place who was as much of a sad sack that you could possibly imagine. Look, never got married, lives with her mother. She's in her 50s. Her mother's in her 80s. She sits there with the mask on her face, doesn't have any money, probably doesn't have much of a social life.
But supports Debbie Wasserman.
Wasserman. And even when I brought up the things about her, but Debbie's come to those breast cancer events, and that's very important.
It's very important, even though she doesn't think everybody deserves health care.
There's no rationalization.
No, it's not logical. It's all fear mongering. It's all fear based. They're just scared. They're scared of they don't know.
There's also a lot of people who are afraid of dying. The only thing I fear about death is that I don't live enough of a life. That's my only fear. I just want to make sure that I live and I really enjoy my life.
I just need to make sure my kids are functioning adults and that I outlive my parents, and
All
then
right,
I'm
so then
good.
you're ready to go already.
I just need to outlive my parents and make sure both my kids are
Then
functioning
you might live a
adults.
lot longer than you think because your parents are doing okay.
I don't know. You never know. I'm just saying, like, I can't. Yeah. But once they're gone and my kids are functioning adults, yeah.
But I do think
C'est
a
la
lot
vie.
of that, I think a lot of that fear, I could be wrong, but I do think a lot of that fear that people do have about their mortality comes from this idea that they don't feel that their life is fulfilling. And there is
Because
this-
we're all cogs in a wheel that are just trying to survive.
Sure.
That's by design. If people were able to enjoy their lives and be content, then that wouldn't be this system. That exists in a parallel universe that is not capitalism.
Well, and therein, and we can conclude our show tonight on this note, because politics is a rich person's game. There's a reason why, as you put it, they are disgustingly liberal. It's because they are of the, at least the middle, if not upper middle class.
Yeah, privileged people that have the luxury of being involved and having the time to participate and being able, most
This is
people
all-
are struggling to survive. I say it all the time. If you're struggling just to get by, you're not paying attention to politics. And quite honestly, it doesn't matter. Most of the people I know that are vulnerable, like people that really come from vulnerable places, it doesn't matter who's president.
No.
Not even a little bit. Doesn't affect them at all. They're like their communities have been on a downward spiral trajectory for decades now. It doesn't matter. But what they are seeing is an increase of collective resources being spent in other places that aren't helping them.
And they get beaten down by life. There's also that aspect as well. People are just simply beaten down to the point of submission, and they're just not capable of being able to fight back.
And people that are able to fight back are people that are privileged, and also their lives don't suck. So it's a whole, unfortunately, the people that have the time to participate are the people whose lives are generally good.
And this is also the thing that you notice. I always joke that it's kind of like going to the racetrack and then you don't come back for a year. And when you do go back, you see the exact same people that you saw the time that you were there previously. You could walk away from local politics, especially in an area like we're in right here. And I can tell you over the course of the years that I have been involved down here, for the most part, there's exceptions to the rule. Some come in, many go out.
It's all the same people.
But the core people, they're all the same.
And it's like a culty club, but you wouldn't want to be in it. And they're generally so unproductive. They don't do anything. They sit around and bitch about Republicans. That's all they do.
No, and then this gets back to the whole problem about why the system is failing at this point. Because the only reason Wasserman Schultz truly gets to sit where she sits is because she has created such a corrupt fiefdom around her.
Yeah.
Not because people really like her, but because she is so in with the most powerful people led by Netanyahu, where basically what you end up doing is you create like a castle. You create a wall around you of protection.
No, you just threaten people, and you threaten their livelihood, and you threaten their businesses.
You do it to everybody. The second a person even thinks about getting out of line,
You blackmail.
that creates a vote share of any kind that could hurt the incumbent.
Like,
it's like, I'll cut you up at the knees.
They
without
do stuff. You want to
hesitation.
know what kind of nonsense goes on down here in politics? Is kind of stuff where, let's say somebody very good as a candidate gets into a race, into a primary, and they actually seem to threaten the incumbent. That incumbent will pay somebody else to get into that race. They will pay somebody else to get into that race using the same platform as that challenger to help dilute the votes. You won't be able to trace it to them.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, my friend, who is extremely daring, she actually went to the addresses of the two people that were then put in that mayor's race in Hollywood and showed up at their houses. And they're both tools. They're both people that were put in there. Neither of them are like legitimate candidates.
100%.
And so that's the kind of stuff that goes on down here. So it's just ridiculous.
The pay to play. This is why when people, you see, this is the thing. If you are objectively in politics like we are, we laugh at people who think that Trump is the end all be all. Like you are a fucking joke.
Well,
if you think he's the end all.
They're
be
just
all.
tools. They just don't. They just.
As
don't
I've always
understand.
said from the beginning, the only thing that makes Trump different is two things. One, he's not part of the club, and two, he just doesn't give a fuck.
And he's rude and crass and
Yeah.
disgusting, and
And people don't like that.
well, he
You could be
makes them
co-
uncomfortable.
Think about, why do people love Cory Booker? Cory Booker's corrupt to the teeth. He's as in bed with Big Pharma and the Israel
But
lobby
he's smooth.
as anybody. He's smooth and he's sweet, and that's acceptable in polite society. You could do the exact same thing, but if you present it well, especially on the blue side of the aisle, they will look the other way 9 times out of 10.
Right. Like they do about things like how we treat immigrants or how we deal with foreign policy. If Trump does it, it's bad. If the blue people do it, then it's fine.
Think about how scared they got about Bernie in 2020. Now, of course, Bernie didn't fight in 20 the way he needed to, but the idea that they gave the grief that they did about Trump, and then they let Bloomberg run for president and Howard Schultz run for president in their
Ridiculous.
primary.
It's so
excuse
stupid.
me. And Tom Steyer, you had 3 fucking billionaires running in your primary in 20. You have the audacity to say that you're the party of working people?
Can I also say something? I don't know if you guys are getting the nonstop ads on YouTube from like Kamala and Barack Obama telling us to donate to the
Yeah,
campaign.
the Barack Obama ads.
Okay.
Yeah.
I find this particularly infuriating. If you are a grassroots candidate, then yes, you need to appeal to people to donate to your campaign. How dare those disgusting oligarchs who use filthy money, take special interest money, are on the take from every fucking corporation, ask, how dare they ask for small dollar donations from regular people? And more importantly, how fucking stupid are people that they donate to them?
Yeah.
These are, it's like if somebody's grassroots is asking you for money, it's yes, because that's the only source of money that they have.
2 things, Bella. This type of political gamesmanship, especially in a presidential election year in swing. Now, Florida's not a swing state, but what's going on in Georgia and North Carolina in particular, both sides are doing this to each other.
They always do
This
this
is
shit.
all about gamesmanship.
I remember Chris Christie with this. Like he was all against giving aid to Katrina, but then when Sandy hit, he wanted help.
And on top of everything else, and I am not saying this in any way to defend Ron DeSantis, who in the fuck does Kamala Harris think she is? The president of the United States? Oh, that's right. We still have a president, apparently.
Oh, is it she
But
tried to reach out to
She
DeSantis?
tried to reach out. She's the vice president. Could you imagine Mike Pence reaching out to a Democrat, like to Governor Newsom, ahead of Donald
Right.
Trump? Like, are you kidding me?
I wouldn't have given her. Well, the truth is, I wouldn't have given her the time
But
of day
of course,
either.
they're going to use that as cannon fodder because
It only works for the same people that are already voting for them.
100%.
It doesn't bring on anybody else. In fact, it turns off people.
And Schultze, let me just say, I will never understand how my late grandfather, who granted wasn't blood, but was able to live within a day, 1 day. He died on New Year's Day, a day short of 95. And he never ate vegetables. He didn't even want to drink water.
Well, good. That bodes well for Reese, who's against vegetables at this point. He says that we're lied to about them.
Well, depending on where you get them from, yeah.
No, he thinks he thinks some fruit, but vegetables are bad. Vegetables are meant to be toxic to people. He has a whole song and dance. I don't know what he's.
I am a huge advocate for eating asparagus in particular.
Whatever. It makes my pee smell weird.
That's the whole point. It's cleaning out the toxins in
need
your
to have
urinary
one.
tract.
I'm married to a urologist. My urinary tract is fine. Thank you.
And that is why Trump eats whatever the hell he wants, because he's got the best doctor. I totally have the best doctors. They're the best. They totally help me all the time.
But like when you see those ads, like, so when I see Obama coming on, it infuriates me. I want to scream, like, how dare you in your rich hoity-toity household sit there and ask regular people to donate portions of their hard-earned money to your corporate shill?
And I remember it very well. I remember seeing it in real time. And I remember everyone giving shit to Christie for doing it because this was close to the presidential election.
That's not why I
2012.
gave shit to Christie for it. I gave shit to Christie for it because he was one of the people that spoke out against helping people from another hurricane, because he's like, that's not our problem. But then he wanted the whole world to give a shit when it was his state's problem.
But then again, we're also having sort of an enlightenment of many people today understanding how money actually works, as Steve Grumbine has pointed out. And I have connected Steve with Keaton and Russell of Due Dissonance. And hopefully, shortly after the election, they will be having a conversation.
Good.
And we will continue to spread that message. And you know what message we're going to be spreading on Thursday night?
I'm just excited. It's Butch
We
Ware's
get the
coming.
Libertarians on tonight. Guess who you get Thursday night, guys? Professor Butch Ware.
You know his name is Rudolph.
Rudolph Butch Ware, the vice presidential nominee of the Green Party.
And you guys know we have, go check out our interview with Dr. Jill Stein. And we've also spoken to Dr. Cornel West. But yeah, you know, Professor Ware was not, had not been selected at the time when we had spoken to Jill.
Correct.
I think, right. She hadn't picked a running mate yet. But yeah. And here's the thing. Notice how while Jill Stein does sometimes choose to include her running mate in an interview, she doesn't need him there to hold her hand to do it.
Yeah, well.
Fascinating.
But you can go watch Kamala's latest interview on, what was that podcast that she was on?
She's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
That thing with the Venn diagrams is hilarious. Her with the Venn diagrams. Did you see this whole thing? Like, that's her favorite word. So they did a whole compilation of her saying, I love Venn diagrams. I love Venn diagrams. You got to do a Venn diagram. Like, her whole thing is Venn diagrams. And so someone did a meme of this Venn diagram of basically garbage, and she's like the head of it. It's like that, you know, if you look at her talking points, they're the same every time. Nothing new ever comes out of her mouth because she doesn't make up her own stuff. Like, she has, you know, it's just crazy. This is so silly.
We'll end on this note.
The Vanguard guys are shilling for Kamala? I don't watch them anymore.
Listen, Scooby and Shaggy do what they do because they are young. Listen, they're not bad guys.
No.
They're well-intended. They're, you know, they're doing what they have to do to maintain their channel. Their channel's not very big, but a lot of them are guilty of it. Because for a lot of them, this is their career. This is how they make money. Now, they're on a very small scale compared to others. I'm very happy, as Jen is, to see Tim Black doing as well as he is.
Yeah, love Tim
And I
Black.
hope that it maintains. Because he basically just decided, I don't fucking care anymore.
I know.
I'm going after Joy Reid. I'm going after Angela Rye.
He goes after all of
I'm
these
not
people.
sitting for this shit no more.
Oh, and he tears down. I mean, basically, he has a lane that really is good because he can call people out that we can't.
We are extremely happy that Status Quo News, and this is on behalf of what is going on with their coverage, Jordan directing them to cover all of these protests on behalf of Free Palestine. Apparently, in the last 24 to 48 hours, they gained another 10,000 followers.
Nice.
Good for them. They deserve it.
Yeah.
But these other channels that are just shilling either for Trump or especially for Kamala,
go away.
they're just doing it for money.
Go away.
They don't actually have principles. Let me tell you, one guy on the right that I absolutely despise is Benny Johnson. And
I don't
Benny
know who
Johnson
that
is
is.
one of the guys who was getting 100,000
I
a
don't know
week
who
or whatever
that
it
is.
was from. They're fucking tools. But you're going to go where the money is.
I watch Bizon. Guys, watch Bizon. And
There's a lot of money on the right, and there's a lot of money with liberals, and that's how it is in politics. For us, the mission is more important. Now, if our show ends up growing and we end up making money as a result, great.
But it's already been 4 years. I don't know. I mean, you know.
We're doing a little better.
Yeah, I mean, here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're trucking along.
But we're very appreciative. And we are seeing new people here.
Absolutely.
And that's what's great. The 7 Sacraments of Health you're new. Sisyphean Task, you're new.
I like
John
Sisyphean
Nada's
Task.
new.
I like the names.
You know, we've got some good people
Nada.
here, and we're very grateful for all of you. So without further ado, and as a good night, Ray J, Schultze, Metal, Bella, Teresa, Henry Kajawa, the 7 Sacraments of Health.
I'm excited to meet Butch Ware.
John Nada, Sisyphean Task, I believe I said that right. Mario, Nelson Ortega. Very
Sisyphean.
lively chat tonight.
It's always,
But it
we always
usually
have a
is.
good chat. We always have a good chat. I saw Chromium. I think he's getting charged by the campaign. And we had forwarded it to Robbie. Did you forward it to Robbie?
Yes, I did.
All right. I'm going to
Self-critical leftist, Kat Negrita, Chris Garrett, Rogant. A lot of people showed up. Very happy that you all did. Let's see. I think I said Bella Lugrisi. If I didn't, I'm saying it again. It's just a great name. Sable Miner, So you and Metal had a little tussle, but we can always have those. That's politics. Colinello, good to see you. Who else? Yeah, the chat's been lively. Mark J, of course, thank you for the $5, our one donation this evening. We're appreciative of all of them.
Always.
I did get a 70 last night, so
that's nice.
Maybe it was just me. I was.
It is maybe. Hey, anytime you want to come on here and pontificate, have at it.
If it's going to help us make a little more scratch.
Are we having him come on at some point? Because I'm going to listen to it.
Norman Solomon is going to come on at some point as well. Steve Wolfbrandt, who asked, Steve Wolfbrandt is new. Wants to know for a new channel. No, but you are
4 years.
That does count. So
4 years in.
We're obviously happy that you showed up as well.
And go back and check out some of our content. We have some really good stuff over the past 4 years.
We have a new follower from the Southern Hemisphere.
She was here before, though.
Verdiana Carvalho.
That's our Brazilian.
Yes. No, we have a couple of Brazilians and we have a Scot.
I love me a Scotsman.
You're a Scotsman. Richard.
When I hear Brazilian, I feel like I really do need to go get waxed.
Thanks for sharing.
I'm just saying that's what I think of when I hear Brazilian.
I guess everyone needs it every once in a while. Self-care is important to people. So make sure you trim the nether regions and do what you got to do.
And Brazilians know how to do it. There's a reason it's called a Brazilian.
Of course, because that personal care is what they are known for.
Well, and they know how to wear because the beaches.
Bikini. The anti-Zionazi.
Thank you.
I believe you're new. JD Drum Shop. Good to see you. JD Drum Shop has been with us since the beginning.
I know, that sounds familiar.
Chewy says, thank you for checking in. And what did Miss Chewy say? I know she said something that I thought was nice.
Yeah. We get some good people. And Chromium, I'm trying to figure out what's happening. I don't know. I just messaged the treasurer.
Thank you, Miss Chewy. We appreciate that. And well, I mean, look, if you want to write me in, I would certainly appreciate it.
New York doesn't have
no. They
kept them off.
We'll talk about that.
What about and Claudia De La Cruz? She's not on the New York ballot.
I believe she's off as well. We'll talk, but they have the Working Families Party.
Write in Jill Stein.
Yeah.
Write in Jill Stein I'd write in Jill Stein before I'd write in Bernie.
Let me tell you, Bruce Carter, thanks for checking in. They really move heaven and earth in New York to keep.
And that's a very blue Democratic state.
And the truth of the matter is that a lot of that AOC New York City vote, the real AOC New York City vote, they would vote for Jill Stein. So they can't have that. They cannot have anyone getting off the reservation. And I will say this to AOC. The statement she put out today in lieu of October 7th was probably the best statement I saw out of any.
Not in lieu of October 7th. You mean to recognize October 7th?
Recognition.
In lieu means instead of.
Well, in lieu of actually making a shitty statement, which is basically what everybody else did.
Did everybody made some maudlin statement? I feel the same way about October 7th that I do about 9/11. I don't want to hear about it anymore.
And peace stuff.
I really don't. I don't want to hear about it anymore. You rode that out. That ship sailed.
That's a good one. I like that. That's cute.
I like that too. My bias is music.
Jules T. Thanks for checking in. I think that's
that just it ends the conversation faster when I just say things like that. It just makes it faster. When I say that, I don't care about October 7th. I don't condemn Hamas. I don't give a shit anymore about anything that happened on October 7th.
Teresa, thank you. Teresa, thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kira Crowley, for checking in.
I used to care. But it's like sometimes your welcome gets worn out when you use something over and over and over again. It's like it doesn't mean anything anymore. And I don't care.
CO, welcome and thank you very much.
Thank you.
And welcome to a very lively and welcoming chat. Yes. We are a small but mighty chat.
We're small but mighty.
And so in conclusion, Alex put out a statement today that didn't really mince words. She acknowledged that there was an attack and that it was bad. She didn't say rape.
Or beheaded babies.
Yeah, no. But what she did say,
babies in ovens.
What she did say is that the Biden administration has completely failed the Palestinian people and that there is no excuse for what has transpired.
But yet, she voted for the money.
Mm.
That ends the discussion to me.
And
you do not get to say, I care about this, but then do that.
And could you
No.
please stop saying 40,000 dead Palestinians?
I'm so
It's
done.
already well established that at a minimum, it's 138,000.
And I'll tell you what I think.
At a minimum.
I think that they've passed 250,000 people.
I agree as well.
I do. And I think that to not think that is just completely unreasonable. We've been watching it for a year. Do the math.
Yeah.
You had a finite number of people. There's no food going in. The people, and by the way, here's the other problem. When they say 40,000, they only include people that were killed by like direct military action. Well,
Not counting
but
the people buried.
it doesn't count it doesn't count people dying from disease and starvation. It doesn't count that. Well, I've seen children being starved to death. I've seen children die from heart attacks. Well, I haven't seen that. I've seen the doctors reporting from Gaza that is something that's
We've
happening.
seen the videos of the infants on the operating tables being worked on and literally having shaken baby syndrome in real time.
How about the guy walking around holding his kid's foot?
Yeah.
I saw a mother carrying her son in a bag because she didn't want to leave his body. I've seen enough. And for every rat you see, there's 50 that you don't. So to think that to me, this has to be already at 250,000 people.
I would agree.
And I do not, and I've said this from the beginning, there is no way out of this less than a couple million dead people. There just isn't. So I don't know. They could keep saying whatever number they want to keep saying. That makes no sense whatsoever to me. There's just no way that's possible.
With that said, we appreciate you all. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We will see you Thursday, and free Palestine.
Free Palestine.